So we are live.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's one of our series again, called the LNA Talk series. We started this in COVID, during the COVID period, but took a break and have come back this year. This is the second in the series. And as you might all know, the topic is from stand-up comedy to skits, copyright, making laughs, make money. We've got a very rich array of panelists. My duty would not be to introduce them, but I'll say thank you again for coming, and thank you to the panelists that are here. MC Larry J. Enrico is here. We're still expecting one or two other people. Yemi, Professor Yemi is here. Professor Adewopo, who will be moderating, is here. And I will now hand over to Professor Adewopo to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawi. Without much ado, I think we should just proceed with the proceeding of the day. We have
Prof, over to you.
Can you hear me?
A bit louder, sir.
All right. In this webinar, as we've heard from Mr. Lawi, we are talking about skits. And to talk about skits, we have a rich panel cutting across different levels of engagement and giving us different perspectives of this very interesting topic. But just before I introduce the speakers, I would like to make a few introductory remarks just to set the tone for the conversation that we're going to have in the next 1 or 2 hours. As I said, this is an interesting subject which has not been really a subject of robust discussion or at least sufficient enough in the discussion of the entertainment industry, even Nollywood, which has received, as we all know, global acclaim. Yet it is evident that what can be regarded as a skit revolution in the last 10 years or so has not only emerged to capture the attention of both Nigerian and international audiences, but it has, in that period, developed into a vibrant sector of the Nigerian entertainment industry, building on the heels of Nollywood. Indeed, skit making has established itself as an emerging industry, by some accounts, ranked as the third largest entertainment industry with enormous economic potential, facilitated by the marked shift from the traditional broadcast media to social media. From a recent report, it has been rated as one of the leading income-generating and job-creating sectors with a net worth of over 50 billion. That's about 34 million US dollars. Certainly, such a wealth-creating sector of the creative economy with abundant economic and creative capacity is worth interrogating. The skit industry, therefore, compels a more informed inquiry into its preeminent position in the national cultural space and its contribution to the creative economy. The combination of the creative genius of our skit makers, the audience experience, the global appeal, the economic opportunities, the social, political influence, and more has defined the Nigerian skit-making landscape as the fastest growing creative industry, and in some quarters has been regarded arguably as a threat to mainstream Nollywood and stand-up comedy. For example, from the unique format of storytelling and content creation to acquiring celebrity status and becoming brand influencers with advertising, marketing, financial, and wider profile through maximizing the use of social media as a significant source of job creation and income for thousands of talents. Skit makers clearly are shaping the Nigerian creative and cultural space. This tremendous range of values concerning such a vibrant industry has therefore raised serious issues that we're going to discuss in this webinar, particularly on the sustainability of the industry and the protection of the creative works constantly churned out the various social media platforms. Of course, as we all know, the foundation of legal protection of all creative work is copyright. This is why the issue of IP protection for skit making is fundamental. Some of the critical questions that we're going to discuss, we go around the relationship between skit making and copyright law. What are the rights, the duties, the obligations, the streams of income, rights management mechanism available under the law? Is there adequate copyright protection, if any, for skit makers? Issues of copyright infringement, or what is called joke theft, eligibility for jokes under the new Copyright Act. Interestingly, as we'll see, the Beijing Treaty for the International Protection of Audiovisual Performance was signed about 10 years ago, and Nigeria is a signatory. How far has the Copyright Act implemented or reflected those protections? So we have all these wide-ranging issues of copyright and legal protection that we're going to discuss in this webinar. What kind of policy, what kind of regulatory or development frameworks, including welfare, should be in place to harness the industry for greater performance? Some of these questions are what our panelists will help us to explore and unpack. And as usual, LNA has assembled these experts who help us do this. I will not be surprised if some of our talents in the house give us some lip-cracking jokes in the course of their discussion. But right away, I will go ahead and introduce the speakers, starting with MC Larry, am I correct? MC Larry J, Larry Gregory, to kick off the discussion for about 15 minutes. He will speak for about 15 minutes around the issues of interest on this particular topic. So, Mr. Larry J, you have the floor. Now, after Mr. Larry, we take Mr. Enrico Bonadio, then we take him from there. So once again, I welcome you all as we listen to MC Larry J for 15 minutes. MC Larry J, you have the floor.
I don't even know where to start from. So good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. It depends on where you're calling from. My name is Olarinwaju Gregory, and I am MC Larry J. I'm sorry I might not be able to turn on my camera because I'm en route. I'm headed somewhere. But all I will say is, as regards to comedy, as regards to entertainment as a whole, you have actually broken everything down. Like everything I'm supposed to say, the one I was thinking, the one I've even done my research on, you have said everything. So right now, I don't even know where to start from. But all I'll say is, for every aspect of comedy, for every aspect of entertainment, it should not be rigid, because it would drive. It would be needed at some point. Me doing short clips on social media, people tend to forget the fact that I am also a stand-up comedian and also an MC. And I have the abilities to actually be an hype man also. So if we are being rigid with whatever we're doing as regards entertainment, you might lose the juice. For anyone who's listening and for anyone who wants to be a part of it, it's, as much as it's easy, it's also a bit difficult, because you then need to get the attention. Because right now, all these good phones is making it hard for us to know who is giving out good content and who is not. That's why you find people who actually have the money and they are shooting with so much expensive stuff, but yet there is no good content. It's one thing for you to have a content. It's another thing for you to have a content that can last and that can stand the test of time. It's content that people watch and watch and watch and watch, and they'll never get tired of. Those are two different things. Those are like extremes. because most of the contents we have now, for example, in Nigeria, some of the content
We're losing you, MC Larry. We're losing you, maybe because of your motion. Hello? Are you still there? MC Larry J. I think we lost him.
It's like he's dropped off.
Yes, I'm sure he's going to try and come back. He must be trying to come back. He must be trying to come back. Trying to come back. Yes.
Hi, Larry. We lost you. We lost you, and you're muted at the moment. You're muted at the moment. If you can hear me.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm back now. Went through the tunnel,
Yes.
so every
Yes.
form just went off. But
Yes.
what I'm in essence is the fact that I've been to events. So this is actually for network's sake, let me stop the video. This one actually happened for real, for real. They called me for an event, and it wasn't just me. It was myself and two other content creators, or three others. And we were supposed to go on stage to perform. Not everywhere that me already have the stage presence. I already have skills when it has to be the stage. Eventually, they called the first guy, the first content creator. For 2-3 minutes, it was making sense. Afterwards, and they gave him 20 minutes. For 3 minutes, it was making sense. Afterwards, people were literally looking and they were saying, what's going on? What's this guy saying? What's really going on? They were shocked. And at the end of the day, me, on the other hand, they called me to just come. What did they call me to? I was supposed to do the after party. I was supposed to hype for the after party. I was like, no problem. Let me just wait and see the events now. At least when they finish. That's how their boss called me. He knows I'm a comedian. I'm a stand-up comedian. He was like, Larry, you have to do something. I said, no, you did not pay me for this one. You paid these people millions for them to do stand-up when they are just skits makers. And you didn't pay me to do this. He said, please, you have to do this for me. I literally did an invoice for them immediately. They paid me, and then I went on stage. I did what I had to do. It was more like a saving grace. The other person who is also a skit maker that was meant to go on stage, that one was not telling them, I don't do stage. I told you before, I don't do stage. Meanwhile, they've told everybody that, oh, these guys are coming and they will come and do something for you. They will entertain us. And they paid millions for it. This is tens of millions. But to God be the glory, or for lack of better words, it was more like I saved the event. All I'm trying to say is, let's not just focus on skit making because it's a fast way to make it, or what can we do to actually sustain it rather than just making it. And all these things, for example, my own style of comedy is dependent on my background. My background is very tricky. If I start telling people about my background now, some of you can relate and some of you might not be able to relate. Because as you are hearing me, I wanted to say as you are looking at me, and I remember that my video is not on. As you are hearing me, I went to 6 secondary schools in 6 years. So different tastes, different place. And I went to one of the best universities that when I finished, they gave me to whom it may concern. They didn't even give me certificate. They would shout. It's more like, just go and sort yourself out in this life, because I don't know whether they are the ones who are tired of me or I'm the one who is tired of them. As in, it was that bad. So me coming out and realizing, oh, everybody's doing their own thing. Everybody is saying, oh, you get one day. Well, they're all trying to paint. Me, I can actually tell you something that happened to me for real, for real. Someone cracked a joke. Someone cracked a joke. The person was like, oh, that it wasn't even someone. I heard a joke from somebody who is close to me, Alibaba. It was not like, when you know those people that will enter Uber and then they're supposed to pay the Uber guy. Instead of them to tell the Uber to drop them, they will pick one graveyard and then tell the Uber to stop in front of the graveyard. Do you understand? And every time this guy does that, he will not tell the Uber guy, wait, I'm coming. Let me go and bring money. He will go inside the graveyard. He won't come out. And then the Uber guy will be scared to go into the graveyard. And then he will leave. They'll forget it. But unfortunately for him, one day, he entered the graveyard. He saw somebody there. The person was not like, I've been waiting for you. I was the one who carried you yesterday to this place. This is where me too I stay. So he himself, when someone who is claiming to be spirit now meet original spirit, he was scared he was scared. And now I was not telling Alibaba, I said, this thing is a joke. But me, I have actually done it in real life. My own was even worse because I didn't go to graveyard. I painted my face white. I wore a white this thing over my head. I went to somebody's church. It wasn't a graveyard. I went to somebody's church, and it was meant to be a prank between myself and my friend. We went, and I didn't know that was the wrong church. So it was like, it's a redeemed church, but there were plenty of redeemed church in my school then. And I went to the church. I put this thing inside my nose, like, you know, those pops. I put this inside my, and I went, by the time I entered the church, even the pastor of the church was not shouting Jesus. He ran away. Me, I was not thinking to myself, I was like, is this not where I am meant to be? They were like, this is not where you're meant to be in Jesus' name. This is not where you're meant to be in Jesus' name. I had to call my friend. So for me calling my friend all dressed like that, I called my friend like, guy, where are you now? You people should be coming. They were starting. They will not come here in Jesus' name. They will not come here in Jesus' name. My friends came. They picked me up. They were not like, no, Larry, that's the wrong church you went to. I literally had to go back to apologize to their pastor. I'm sorry, it is the wrong church. They are doing like drama. So I'm supposed to be like they didn't. It happened to me for real. But anytime I'm saying it, people say, oh, it's a joke. But this one happened in real life. I have been known to tell stories. That's my own style of comedy. Okay, for example, there's a time I cracked a joke and it was about the pepper joke, and some of us know about it. Some of us have experienced it. And this one happened to me for real. My mother sent me a message. I was supposed to go and grind pepper, and I took the pepper. After grinding it, on my way back, she has warned me not to play football. On my way back, my friend called me, Larry, let's quickly play. And I told him, I said, wait, let me quickly drop my pepper. He said, let's quickly play our set. I dropped my pepper. As we were playing, one car passed. He stepped on the post we were supposed to use. After stepping on the post we were supposed to use, ladies and gentlemen, my friend told me, Larry, maybe your pepper is heavy. I said, yes. He said, let's quickly use it. I carried my own pepper. I was one who used my pepper to measure the post. I used my pepper as post. Ladies and gentlemen, to the glory of God and shame of the devil, I was the one who poured my pepper by myself. I kicked the ball, and the ball hit the pepper. The pepper poured away. As the pepper was pouring, in my mind, I was just hearing burial song. I knew the kind of mother that I have. My mother does not take rubbish. My mother is the one that will let you know it's God that give it and the one that take it. And God have my mother will let you understand that I born you, I can kill you. It's not how this thing. So I knew that was in. So my friends they tell me, Larry, let's go and beg your mother. Let's go and beg. I say, if you come to my house, my mother will kill me and you, and your parents will not know where you are. Just let me go and die for everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I went to my house. My mother saw me. She saw me wailing. She saw me crying. She was like, Larry, don't worry. Everything will be okay. She did not open the pepper. She was like, sit down. I sat down. She gave me Coke. I drank. She gave me biscuits. I ate. I was eating and taking everything because I know it's last supper. I know I will still die that die last time. Ladies and gentlemen, as she opened the pepper, she saw stone inside. She saw sand inside. She did not hesitate. She started, Larry, I said, man, let it go. She beat, there's a way your parents will beat you towards Christmas. You will forget that it was Christmas. That was the first year in my life. I do not remember New Year. I didn't remember Christmas. But I shall know there was a skipping. You'll be in your best test, for lack of better word. I was in my best test behavior all through till the next year. So sometimes most of the things that we do, for example, me, most of the things that I do are realistic jokes. And I can always, there are sometimes when I tend to do them on social media also. I'll just be like, I'll say it as a story. And people will get it. Some people will get it, some people would not. I would not say everybody gets it. Because, ladies and gentlemen, for everyone who is hearing me here, please note that no matter how good you are, and the only problem that entertainers are facing, especially when it has to do with comedians, because people are liking to look for something that will make them happy, something that will make them laugh. Because of the situation of this world now, everything you can ever think of make you sad. You look at your finances, you'll be sad. You look at what you need to get, you'll be sad. But you are always looking for things to make them happy. And there are comedians who are creating stuff and putting it on stage. And then the problem we're having is the fact that skit makers will now take what they have said on stage and put it as their own in their skits. And the comedians cannot call out the skit makers because they will tweak it and say, oh, but this is not how you said it. So it has always been a problem, and it is still a problem. And like our Oga said from the beginning, even the movie industries are suffering it because they will make long movies. Now people's attention span is not so long again. Our attention span have reduced from before it used to be 5 minutes. Now it has reduced to, after a while, it reduced to 3 minutes. Statistics have shown that our attention span now is 30 seconds. If for the first 30 seconds you are not getting my attention, I'll lose interest in whatever it is I'm watching. The only reason why we have 19 people here and we still have 19 people, if not that I left and I came back, is because we are here to learn. So we know what we're about. We want to benefit from this. So I don't even know if I've exceeded my time or not, but nevertheless, all I'm saying is these things will always make room for us. And are we at the position where we can take advantage of the rooms that is making for us? For example, I'm going for an event now in somewhere far away from where I am in the UK. And the person who saw me, she has seen my skits one too many times. She likes them, but she needs me to come in person to actually host the event. So our first question was, can you host an event? And I had to show her videos of me hosting. I was like, oh, wow, great, fantastic. Thank God you can do this. That was how I got it. If I couldn't, there's no way I can do all of this. And as much as possible, let's remember, even as our younger generation, they are trying to create things. And creativity needs a lot of wisdom to last and stand the test of time. That's why we have webinars like this. I am so glad. Thank you so much for having me. I know I'm also guilty of this, and I will learn from it how to have my thing to myself and people not taking advantage of it. Do you understand? And it is so, we don't know how important it is. Because right now, the only reason why people, I don't know if some of us know their names. People like Busta Rhymes, people like some of these music producers in the US and other parts of the world are enjoying the benefits of things that they've done in the past, is because they had all of this in place. Now, people are very much about making money, and then they are losing interest in what they have to do. It's just recently that I just got monetized on YouTube. But guess what? So many people are posting my videos on YouTube, on their page, and you report it, but there is nothing to prove that you are the owner of the thing, because it's not even on your own page. So people are not, there is nothing for you. YouTube cannot really do anything about it. Meanwhile, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have seen it on another person's post, and they've not seen it on my own post. But there is nothing I can do about that. But thank God for webinars like this that will actually enlighten us and actually teach us how to go about it. We are stuck in an environment where we have so much, it's so rigid and it's so complicated, and people are looking for the fastest way out. That's the reason why they go into skits making. There is no skits maker that have been up there for a very long time without a purpose. If you have a purpose, then you will last and stand the test of time. AKA, I'm not afraid to say it, Lai Wasabi, a fantastic guy. He's a lawyer by profession. He's a lawyer by profession. And he's using things and somehow educating people from his own skits. I enjoy it also. I watch it too. Some other ones too, lots of them. Some people are actually enlightening people about their rights and letting them know what they have and what they have rights to and what they are not. It makes sense. Some people are doctors and they are into skit making just to enlighten people and educate people. It will not end. There are likes like that, and there are some that are just there. The ones that are just there, you would never understand them, because it's only for a moment and then it fade away. So with these few points of mine, I hope I've been able to convince you and not to confuse you that my name is Olarinwaju Gregory. I'm a comedian and I'm monetized and I'm also here to learn. Thank you very much.
Wow, of course. MC Laroje, you didn't disappoint. We expected that. I mean, that's what you do for a living. And thank you for bringing some fun to this webinar. Thank you so much. But before you go, we're not going to allow you to go so quickly. Mr. Enrico, before I call you to speak, let's take one or two questions for MC Larry before he leaves. Very quickly, if you have a question, one or two, we can allow you to ask the question. But just to set the tone, I would like to think about how you can make skit making, how you can sustain it. I mean, can you give us some thoughts around that? How this whole enterprise of skit making in Nigeria can be sustained, from creativity to money making? And what are the issues apart from legal protection, which we're going to discuss? We have two speakers that are going to take that subject very squarely. But apart from that, what other issues of regulation, issues of welfare, issues of control, and all of that? I know you really can't control creativity, but how can the enterprise keep making be sustained? And what are the issues that you think are very, very important for skit makers to address, of either government or some kind of regulators or what have you? Can you give us your thought around those issues while we wait for one or two other questions very briefly? MC?
All right. The only thing I would say, we have quite a number of problems when it has to do with skit making. First of all, if you decide to be a skit maker today, you need to look for your own audience. You need to carve a niche for yourself. You need to show how you're different to others. That's why I said, if you actually have a purpose for making the skits in the first place, you would not have a problem. But if you are doing it just for the money, you get stuck at some point. If you are looking, and at the same time, while you are doing that, you need to do what people want. So you need to look, one of the major problems is actually getting people to actually know you and see you. One of the major problems. And then as regards creating content, that's the reason why I said some of the problems that comedians, stand-up comedians suffer is that they will sit down and think about something they can do. They can say that will make people laugh. And then skit makers will steal that and turn it into skits. And they will do it. And then the comedians, the stand-up comedians who sat down to thought about all of this, will now see someone else acting out what they have said on stage. And they are broke. The person is making money. So people are like, oh my God, this guy is very creative. Meanwhile, it's someone else's sweat from stand-up comedy that he's getting something out of. You understand? And I feel like one of the picture quality also matters. Getting the right camera, getting the right audience. Yeah, getting the right picture quality, because nobody will want to scroll through. If you see something very beautiful, you want to know what exactly it is. You want to know how, oh wow, this is beautiful. What are they saying it is? So I've grabbed your attention with the picture you've seen. Okay, now let me listen to you. And then if I'm able to laugh, or you keep me at the edge of my seat for in few seconds, then I'm glued to you. Then I'll want to listen to what you have to say. But if not, I'll just keep scrolling. I might just like it because the picture quality is fine and the audio is clear. I'll just keep scrolling. That's why you see people, whenever some people will post and they have thousands of likes, and you're watching it and you're like, this thing does not make any sense. And there are lots of that loads of it on Facebook, especially. Facebook is monetized. So as you're posting on Facebook, as people are watching, you can monetize it. There's a sequence to it. There is a way you register yourself as a content creator, and then you get monetized, and then Facebook get to pay you for every view. Though it's little, so the bigger the number, the more money you get. That's why today I can gladly tell you, some people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars every month on Facebook alone. Just Facebook. On Facebook alone. While some people are making from TikTok, some people are making on YouTube, some people are making on all of the platforms. So one of the major problems that they have is getting the attention of people, and also getting the attention of people, and also creating more content that people like. Because people are, I don't use the word bipolar, but people, what they are feeling now is not the same thing they'll feel tomorrow. So even you two, you have to be bipolar with them. Today they are talking about, why would a woman say she needs a man that earns 7 million naira per month? Tomorrow is another one. Oh, how would a teacher beat a child in the class? What right does the teacher have to? The two they don't have any relations to each other, but you need to just create something around that, so as to get the attention of people at that moment, and then still pass your message across. Because I'm all about message, actually. I'm all about the message you're passing across in what you're doing. So that's what it is. I hope I've been able to answer it some way.
Prof, you're muted, sir.
Sorry about that. Thank you for that insight, MC Larry J. We have 3 more questions for you very quickly. One from Dr. Itai and 2 from Ms. Amosa. We would like you to take these questions very briefly. I'll read them out for you, MC Larry J. The first one says, you mentioned that you complained about your skits being on YouTube, and you complained, but nothing was done about it initially. So how has that changed now? What did you do differently? Take note of that. I'll read the 2 other questions from Ms. Amosa. Why is it that we have not seen any stand-up comedian challenge infringement of their work as compared to the music industry? And the second one, which is a follow-up from Mr. Amosa, is that whether there is an existing regulatory body for stand-up comedy who can collectively help fight infringement in your industry? And I think these are very, very important questions. Can you address those questions? Give us some
All right.
insight.
First of all, I'll answer the first question, which is my videos on YouTube. You can even check it out. All you need to do is just go on YouTube. If you can do it, just go on YouTube and type MC Larry J. You see how many people have posted videos of me on stage that I don't even have on my own YouTube account. And I've reported them, but there is nothing YouTube can do because they've been paid for it already for the views they have. Do you understand? YouTube has paid them. So I can't retract or tell YouTube to collect their YouTube cannot collect their money back. People have collected money, they've gone. So there is nothing I can really do about it. Instead, thank God for creativity. So then I have to now create other content and make sure that it goes as viral as those ones did. Do you understand? So, for example, practical example, I performed at the Experience last year, and the video went viral. Experience, that's for us on the rock. The video went viral, and guess what? As much as it went viral, I was the one now begging other people that posted it on YouTube, please bring it down. This thing happened yesterday. You have posted it today. It has gone viral today. Can I post it myself? Like it was that bad. But guess what? These people will just, all they will do is block comments. Once they block comments, they realize there's nowhere you can type anything to them. Even if you report the post, I think there's an amount of reports that will make YouTube now question it. Then, even if they paid the person before, they will stop paying the person for that video, that particular video. Not like they won't, they have paid him before, but from then, they will stop paying that person for that particular video. And that's it. And as regards the next question, stand-up comedians challenging skit makers. I think that's happened privately in so many ways. It has happened privately in so many areas. To the extent that you are trying to satisfy and trying to tell them, this thing is my work. This thing is my work. They'll be the ones to say, what is it? Is it because it's going viral? That is why you are shouting. As much as that thing, it kills anybody's morale. So some comedians have decided to, you know what, I'll keep quiet. I'll just be mindful of. That's why comedians, if you notice, comedians don't on social media as much as they're supposed to anymore because they are scared that if they do, a skit maker will watch it and create something out of what they have said, and they'll try to fight it and they will not win it. And as regards the last question, I am not really sure there is an existing body. There is, because last time I had a conversation with Alibaba made me understand that there is an existing body. But I'm not sure if they were so out there to the level where they are very rich, I believe lots of comedians will actually subscribe to it. Those ones that are creating original content, they will subscribe to it. And if it is not, because they won't want to subscribe to something that they know will cost them an arm and a leg, and then they don't have any case. You get? So I'm paying, and Nigerians, we don't have a culture of pain. We don't have a paying culture. We have a owing culture, for lack of better word. We have owing culture. We don't like paying for things. So if you give it to them and let them know, oh, this one will benefit you, X, Y, Z, blah, 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 blah. Just, I feel, I don't want to bring my business side into this, but I feel like it is something that is very doable. And if we have the body out there, if it was accessible, I will know about it. But at the moment, I don't know about it. So the only thing I know about is entertainment lawyers. That's all. We only have entertainment lawyers.
Wow. Thank you so much, MC Larry J. I think we can have more of that. That's just too fantastic. We really enjoyed We enjoyed your session. With everything you got, you know, your answers, your presentation, even your jokes and all of that. I mean, that is, didn't expect any less from you. Thank you so much. But just hang around if you can, and as we take the next.
Oh yeah, I'm hanging around. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
here to.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Nobody
you
must
very
do property again.
That's a good one. So, Mr. Enrico Bonadio is an academic who teaches IP, and also he practices IP. He's a PhD reader at the City University of London, and is a seasoned IP practitioner and academic in this area. And we are pleased to have him speak to us for the next 15 to 20 minutes around skit making and all the issues that is of interest to him. Thank you very much, Mr. Enrico. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Adebambo. Thanks so much, Ayoemi, for the kind invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you. I would have loved to be in Nigeria, but maybe next time for a physical seminars or conference we might meet. So let me just straight on. Let me just start. You know, my short talk on copyright protection of jokes, basically. You know, comedy presentation jokes, stand-up comedy. I mean, as we all know, comedy has been around for centuries, no? From even the Greek time before Christ and the Romans, throughout the Middle Age. I mean, telling jokes, comedy has been a feature of our social entertaining for so many centuries. So the questions that we should ask ourselves is the following. I mean, first of all, can jokes be copyrighted? And what is the scope of protection given to copyrighting jokes? We will see that the issue of copyrightable subject matter and the scope of protection are, the two issues are intertwined, right? Because there are some limitation on what can be protected as copyrighted work, and the jokes you know, fits into this narrative. Basically, there are large portions of jokes which cannot be protected. They are basically facts or ideas, and they cannot really be monopolized. And therefore, another comedian who appropriates just the non-protectable elements of the jokes will not commit copyright infringement, right? That's why I said that the copyrightable subject matter issue is intertwined with the scope of protection. Sometimes jokes are made of predominantly facts or ideas and cannot be appropriated. And this could be problematic for many comedians because jokes are commonly produced, created by comedians by taking what? Well-known facts and adding some twist to it that kind of surprises the audience, right? And therefore, let's imagine a court, a judge, having to decide whether comedian A has copied comedian B and therefore is liable for copyright infringement. What would the court do? First of all, the court would assess these jokes under, you know, the substantial similarity test, which varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But the substantial similarity test will need to focus just on the protectable elements of the joke, not on the non-protectable element. So just to give you a short example, if I tell a joke about former President Trump facing trials around the world in America, I mean, I cannot prevent someone else from making a joke about the same facts. What I will need to protect and monopolize is the twist, the particular original twist about that joke. Of course, as long as it reaches the level of originality which is required. But we know that the level of originality in several jurisdictions is quite low, right? For protecting works, including jokes. So it is evident how the actual elements of a joke that are protectable under copyright law is and may be quite limited, right? So this is the first issue, which has to do with the so-called dichotomy idea expression, which is, you know, a valid, one of the most principles of copyright law, especially under TRIPS. There is Article 9, who tells us that, you know, ideas cannot be protected, facts cannot be protected. Jokes, comedians should be aware of that. Another problem is fixation, right? At least in those jurisdictions where fixation is a requirement. I guess Nigeria is one of them because it's based on UK, British copyright law, and therefore you have a fixation requirement also in the US. Any kind of work need to be fixated on a tangible medium, which could also be digital. So there are sometimes improvisations made by comedians, right? Who tells jokes like this, improvising, and they don't write them down. What if someone else, you know, hears the jokes and then starts exploiting the joke? If it has not been fixed, that's a problem. And so that's another issue comedians should be aware of. So the best suggestion that a lawyer could give to his or her client, comedian, is as soon as you come up with jokes that could be also very short jokes, right? 2-3 lines, go and register it with the local corporate office or the US corporate office, which is the most famous one. It's not compulsory to do that, of course, because copyright arises from the moment of creation. You don't need to register, but for evidentiary purposes, it's very important, especially for comedians who create many jokes, right? That's their job, no? To be creative and create many jokes, come up with many jokes. It would be very, very important to register them, or at least to record them on a tangible medium, right? There is also an issue of de minimis, which when it comes to copyrightable subject matter, so I go back a bit. Jokes that are too short might not attract copyright. There is no threshold, let's say, but it seems that, for example, under EU law, in a decision of 2009, the InfoPact decision, the Court of Justice of the European Union said that 11 words, so a sentence of 11 words, might arguably attract copyright. But, you know, in several jurisdictions, there might be issues on very short jokes of a few words, right? Of course, the longer the joke is, less issues will arise, no? And they might be protected as literary works. Here we talk about literary works. So going back to the analysis, so fixation is an issue, and which must be considered. The registration, the corporate office is important. And now I want to focus on a case which it's an American case. First of all, I need to say that there have not been many cases around, right? This is not the kind of subject matter which is usually litigated, right? Which also shows probably the lack of full knowledge by comedians of the copyright right tools that could be used, right? Because issues of imitation arise, happen, materialize. And comedians sometimes go to the social media and denounce such theft. And the way they react very often is not to take a legal action or to send the cease and desist letters. Not at all. Is to publicly shaming the imitator on social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, right? This is called, social norms, which are used in the community to react in case of imitation. Cases are really, really very, very rare. And I would say that this body of social norms functions quite well within this community. But we should wonder whether social norms might really be enough when and where there is economic exploitation of the imitated, of the imitated joke. In that case, probably the comedian who has been copied might start thinking, well, shaming on Facebook might not be enough. I need to take a more solid and threatening legal action by asking my lawyer to send this guy a strong cease and desist letter, especially if this guy is using this joke, for profits, because these comedians are paid. I mean, it's their job, right? It's an economic activity at the end of the day, creating and telling jokes, because such jokes are then consumed by audiences who pay, audiences in platforms where there are advertising spaces. It is all within a commercial context, or might be. Of course, there are then also comedians who do not charge, who love. It depends on the context. But let's now consider this US case of 2017. I mean, 2017, Robert Kaseberg, a writer, a freelance and comedy writer for over 20 years at that time, took a legal action on copyright infringement grounds against a late night personality, Conan O'Brien, in the US. We are in the US. So the court was the US court. Because in one of these late night television shows, this guy, Conan O'Brien, used 5 jokes, told the audience 5 jokes created by Robert Kassenberg, and that Robert Kassenberg had published on his blogs, right? And on social media accounts in 2014 and 2015. And each of the jokes generally consisted of a short, factual sentence followed by a commentary, right? According to the plaintiff, he started noticing his competitor, let's say, performing similar jokes on Conan's show shortly after the guy posted them online, right? Well, one of the main elements, issues of contention in this case was the appropriate standard of evaluating the level of similarity between the two jokes, the jokes in comparison, right? It was a summary judgment, so, the assessment was not so complete. But anyway, the court performed the test, which is the extrinsic test in substantial similarity under US copyright law. So the judge dissected the jokes and found that some of them were comprised almost only of unprotectable elements, facts. And therefore, the jokes in their whole were entitled to only thin protection. Again, you can see the interrelation between scope of protection, between copyrightable subject matter and scope of protection. If the copyrightable subject matter is very thin, in the sense that there are just few elements which are protectable, the twist, right, the original twist to the fact, well, the scope of protection will be affected by that, in the sense that the copyright owner will be able to prevent others from exploiting what? Just the protectable elements of the joke. It's a thin scope of protection, which is affected by the thin copyrightable subject elements. So the court at the end found that when copyright protection is thin, the appropriate standard for similarity may be just virtual identity of the protectable elements. And in this case, no copyright infringement was found. It was a summary judgment, of course. So what is the lesson to be learned from this case? That comedians face unique challenges in proving substantial similarity, and also in America and other countries to proving access, right? Under American law, copyright law, in order to be successful in a copyright infringement case, you need not only to prove similarity, but also that the defendant had access. Well, one may say, when you publish it online and then the competitor picks it up a few weeks later, you might rely on presumption, right? By saying, look, the world of comedians is not so big. I mean, there are many comedians, but it's a community, right? And therefore, it is plausible that if an act of imitation materializes just a few weeks after the competitor had posted online in the blog the 5, 6, 10, whatever poems, that there is a presumption that the defendant had access, able to access such content, let's say. So demonstrating an alleged joke misappropriation is difficult, especially for the less known, right, comedians. The well-known comedians might have a less burdensome evidentiary, challenge task here, right? Yes, because, non-famous comedians may have issues because their jokes are not widely disseminated in the very same way jokes created by famous comedians are. And therefore, the less famous comedian, would need to look to prove a chain of events linking the defendant to his own joke, which may be difficult, okay? There is also the issue of independent creation, right? It might not be rare that two comedians come up with the same or very similar joke independently. Well, why not? It may happen in the very same way fashion designers may come up with fashion products which are very similar. It's a crowded market. Also, the market of comedians could be considered. Well, in this case, there is no copyright infringement, right? Because we know that copyright laws do not give protection against independent creation made by a second comer. It's not like patent law, right? Where, even if the defendant comes up with the patented technology 2 years later, the filing of the patent, well, doesn't matter. It is a patent, it's an absolute right. Copyright is not so absolute, right? So this needs to be taken into account. So in this case, in Kaiserberg, the court, as I said, found that the jokes in questions were only entitled to very thin copyright, partially because several of them consisted of merely facts, right? So under these standards, it is inevitable that many modern jokes, which are often based on short 1 to 2 sentence monologues, will fail the substantial similarity infringement analysis, right? So it is key here, it is crucial that courts should consider whether a fact was selected or arranged in an original way, twisted in an original way. And that is what is protectable by copyright. Let me just concluding with a proposal which has been made by some academics to create a comedy app, right? A process for licensing a joke from another comedian. It's an academic proposal. I don't know if it has been implemented in some jurisdictions. Probably it will take time. So, but it's interesting, even if it's theoretical and academic. Basically, this comedy hub would also create a service that facilitates the licensing and sharing of comedic material. And through this service, this Comedy Hub, basically a work posted on this Comedy Hub platform, such as a joke, would be given a unique identifier that would allow a potential licensee to reach out to the comedian and ask for permission to use the joke in a program, in a play, whatever. So this Comedy Hub could help comedians better understand the copyright law and its benefits by acting as a user-friendly online repository of information about copyright law. For example, it could provide information on the registration at the Copyright Office, could also encourage comedians to broadly disseminate works by providing a forum for facilitating the exchange of material, which would give them some practical benefits, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's a proposal which has been proposed, put forward by some academics, in particular the academic I am quoting with this proposal is called. He participated to a book which I co-edited a few years ago, and he gave, let's say, Trevor Gates, an American commentator who has done some jobs on this subject. So I have exhausted my time, I think, and I am happy to receive questions, comments, and other kind of reactions.
Thank you, Bonadil. Thank you for that insight. So much to unpack, giving us so much information on the issue of IP protection, coming from the perspective of MC Larry as a creative. You are built on that, and thank you very much. We have the next speaker who is here, Damola Adediji, all the way from University of Ottawa. He will also speak for another 10 minutes because we are fast spent in the webinar. He will give us his own perspective on this issue from the IP and legal perspective. So Damola, you have the next 10 minutes. You have the floor for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I first of all would like to profusely apologize for some weird, strange, and I would say stupid reason. I was working with the Eastern time. I mean, I'm so sorry. I'm really, really sorry. And I apologize to Professor Arolo, Professor Bonadil, and participants online. I can see that Dr. Intanyi is online, Mr. Wadie. I mean, these are senior members of this field. I'm really, really sorry. Please. I did not mean to be disrespectful. Okay, so looking at skits in Nigeria, Professor Bonadio has laid emphasis on, and at least from what I heard, he laid emphasis on comedy in its stand-up form. But in the Nigerian setting, we have seen that a mini industry has been created right from stand-up comedy called comedy skits. And by their very nature, they are very short, they are relatable, and there's also it involves a lot of video editing. It involves character economy. For example, Miriam Apaokagi, popularly known as Taoma, in the Nigerian skit industry, you can see she acts as the son, the father, the daughter, you know. So this industry, the skit industry, has its what I call it in itself, it's also copyright enabling. So it has positioned itself to actually benefit from the Copyright Act, especially the Copyright 2022 Act. So why I said so is, if we go through some of the exceptions under the Copyright Act, parody, satire, and let me just pull up my section 20 sub 1 of the Copyright Act. The right conferred in respect of a work under sections 9 to 11 of this act do not include the right to control any of the acts specified in those sections by the way of fair dealing for purposes such as private use, which does not apply here, parody, satire, caricature. This element actually give skit makers what they did not have initially, because by the nature of their content, they are able to benefit from these exceptions. I'm not saying they should go all the way to infringe as many works as possible, but these general exceptions cover any work at all, including musicals, any work at all that they use for their work or for their content. So they are lucky, and they should maximize these exceptions under our new act. Another thing I would like to make mention of is performers' rights. Section 63 of the Act, of the Copyright Act, has actually broadened, it has broadened the rights of a skit maker, and they need to be aware of this section. So, because as a skit maker, I mean, I watch skits a lot. So, and I love skits. Let me give you an example of where a performer's rights might be implicated. There is a guy called Wuli Agba. If you watch his skits on YouTube, he recruits a lot of dancers. He has a lot of colleagues who perform with him. There is Dele Omo Wuli, and there are other people who dance, who clap, In fact, he has even gone advanced to the extent of inviting mainstream Nollywood actors and actresses. So, as a skit maker, he needs to be aware of the rights of the performers in his skits. These guys are performers. I would argue they are performers under the law. If you read sections between 63 and 69 of the Copyright Act, the definition of a performer includes an actor. And these people, apart from Wuli Agba, who could be construed as the author of the skit, these individual performers also have some rights to decide whether they want the performance fixated or not, whether they want it made available to the public or not. So as a skit maker, you should be aware of the performance of your performers. And that means you need to enter some sort of agreement with them, let it be clear, let it be known to them what they own and how you want to use what they own. In fact, there is a section that is very interesting because it's, let me just check here, just a second, please. I know I have 10 minutes. Okay, so section 69 sub 3 of the Act say a performer in a skit. The Act does not say skit, but to make it very applicable, a performer is entitled to share in any payment received by the person who arranges for the fixation of the audiovisual work regarding the broadcast or communication to the public of the fixed performance. This reward is notwithstanding any agreement between performer and the author. So I'm defining the author based on the person who has made a lot of creative decision to put together the skit. So by the person by whom the arrangement for such fixation is made, it must be noted that this quote unquote cash out is limited to broadcast and communication to the performance public. So even if there's an agreement between the author of the skit and the performer and the performance, there are some, notwithstanding the agreement, there are some aspects of the Copyright Act or some aspect of the right that are still retained, where the law expects the author to still compensate the performance. That is very interesting to me. But that extraordinary cash out is limited to communication to the public and broadcast. This is in there, even notwithstanding the contractual agreement. Away from performance rights, let me start with authorship, because the relationship between copyright and a skit maker is based on authorship. So the Copyright Act in Section 1, for the very first time, our copyright law in Nigeria is stating its own purpose. It says, just a second, I think I have 3 more minutes. The objectives of this act are to protect the rights of authors, to ensure just reward and recognition of their intellectual efforts. So my starting point in tracing the relationship between a skit maker and copyright law is a skit maker and author, because authorship is the bloodline, or is at the core of copyright. The Copyright Act, in defining who an author is in Section 108, ties it to the nature of the work. Section 108 defines the author of a skit or of an audiovisual, because I see the way skits are made in Nigeria, I see them as audiovisual work. So I'm not looking at comedy generally now. I'm looking at skits, comedy skits in the Nigerian sense, how I consume them as a consumer. So author, in the case of audiovisual work, means the person by whom the arrangement for the making of the audiovisual work were made, unless the parties to the making of the audiovisual work provided otherwise by contract between themselves. So in most cases, the author of an audiovisual work is the person who arranges the making of the audiovisual work, makes some creative decisions, tell the video editor what to do, where to cut, what to add, and all. So the primary relationship between the copyright and the skit maker is based on whether or not the skit maker is recognized as an author. If he is recognized by an author, there are rewards under the act, and also a skit maker should know that he is not the sole owner of the work, except there is an agreement between himself and his performance. I'll stop there for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Damola, for that insight, taking us through the provisions of the Copyright Act as far as the Nigerian law is concerned. And to take us further, I will call no other person than our own facilitator and speaker, Professor Ayoyemi Lawal Awolo, to give us some perspectives on the legal protection and issues surrounding skit making in Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Prof.
You have the floor.
Greetings, everyone. I have a confession. I just wanted to be here because a lot of people were here to say so many things. I knew by the time Dr. Enrico speaks, Prof has spoken. Damola just spoke now. In my mind, I've been thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Dr. Enrico started with jokes. talked about the thin line, even talked about the social norm. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say now? So I'll focus more on Nigeria because they've laid the foundation. They've said so many things. They've done a fantastic job. And then, yes, and then MC Larry J. I have a whole lot of questions here, and I felt I was going to depend on those questions for this. And you said a whole lot of things, and actually, you answered some of my questions. There are a whole lot of issues going on. I felt really bad. Like, to tell you the truth, I don't watch all those things they put on YouTube. I only watch you on Instagram. You know, if it's not you, I'm not watching it because there is a high probability that you did not authorize the performance to be recorded and you did not authorize it to be uploaded on YouTube. So those are infringements of your rights as a performer. Damla just talked about performance rights now. But for me, looking at the Copyright Act 2022 and looking at performers, I felt we don't do justice to comedians. I think we should say more about their roles. I'm not going to say a whole lot about jokes because of the issue of idea, that expression, fixation, and all that. There's some very, some have thin copyright protections. You have a few cases, not in Nigeria that I know of. Dr. Enrico mentioned one of them. And so in other jurisdictions regarding this issue, it's actually an issue. It's not just with Nigeria, across board. Jokes, comedians, and now we're looking at skits. Damola also spoke about the audiovisual. And I'm thinking, he just read out the act now. Damola was so gracious. He said, actors, you know, I'm trying to look for it as well in my, I have it here, includes actors, singers, musicians, dancers, and other persons. I put comedians under other persons because are they really all actors, stand-up comedians? I felt somewhere that you could have put comedians, if possible, as performers, because rightly said, you see a whole lot of their works online. They didn't authorize permission. They didn't give permission for it to be recorded in the first place. And then that takes me to what Enrico said regarding ways of protection. I, as a stand-up comedian, will get my live performances to be recorded, and I'll get it out there as well. And if I sit out there, and then you can get on whoever puts it out there, you don't have to go through YouTube all the time because you didn't even authorize the recording in the first place. And then you can go through that route as well, that you recorded my performance without my authorization, and I'm coming after you for those reasons and stuff like that. And that's just talking about one or two things that he said. So I was going to start my presentation today and say it seems to be that social norms, you know, could take care of the issue in certain aspects. Do comedians steal other comedians' works and all that? But listening to MC Larry J, they do. But I feel there's a category of, you know, we have categories of comedians. Maybe I will say we have the old comedians. They're not that old because someone like Ali Baba will not want me to tell him he's old. But they started this comedy thing, I believe. He started stand-up comedy was just the main thing he used to have then. Nothing like skits, you know. You have stand-up comedies. They'll do it at events. They're also MCs, so they do a whole lot of performance stuff. They don't do a whole lot of works that deal with fixation. But I guess what they don't realize is if they do these stand-up comedies and get it recorded, then in a way it's fixed. So there's so many ways around it because there's so many issues that also around comedians and what they do. So I said I'll start with comedians and looking at the possibility of protection. So fixation, if you have your script and it's fixed before you come to perform, you know, literally that has some form of protection. And then you come to perform, then you have some form of protection for performance. But does that stop people from actually still infringing on your rights? No, it doesn't. And I was glad MC Larry J said, no, I'm not going to let anybody cheat me anymore. I'm not going to let anybody take what is not theirs. It's mine. And also using MC Larry J as an example, you are so distinctive. Like you said, what he says you can relate with. If you're blindfolded and you hear his voice, you know he's the one. And then when you see his face, even before he starts to talk, you start to laugh. He has, you know, his style is different. And when he said you find his work on YouTube by people that he did not authorize to put it on there, I could understand it's the stage performances that he's talking about, because I find it difficult to see another comedian copying him directly on Instagram or on any other platform and being able to, the originality, I don't know how they can do that. Being able to be him, I think will be a challenge. maybe comedians should hide the level of their originality. Being able to be him will be a whole different story entirely, because once the person starts, you definitely know it's not MC Larry J. And in looking at things like that, looking at originality, and that's why we'll be looking at the corporate protection. Originality and fixation are required. In some situations here, impromptu jokes by a comedian, you have originality, but you don't have fixation. There's a problem. There's a problem when it comes to corporate protection. Then you want to hide under performance. They are not even recognized specifically, but they can hide under parts of the Corporate Act regarding performers. Looking at it from that perspective. So two perspectives, can either be copyright or related rights. Copyrights when there's originality and fixation. If that is missing, there's a problem. Performance as related rights is also a means out of those the issues that we have. So I was thinking, if you have the social norms and you have copyright, is it true enough? Doesn't seem to be enough either, because it's not just comedians copying comedians. It's everywhere on social media, social platforms. Anyone can copy a comedian from any jurisdiction. I've seen someone that looks like a British, not look, I believe he is, speak in Yoruba, what a comedian is saying in Yoruba. It's just, he's saying what somebody else has said, and it's on social media, and he has thousands and thousands of followers because he repeats what comedians are saying. And he'll make something out of it. How do you now? Another question I was going to ask is, are comedians really bothered that this is going on? But from what MCLIJ said, I believe they are. But are others concerned as well? This is what we need to start doing now. Dr. Eriko said maybe he'll come physically. Do we need to start having meetings regarding comedians? Do we need to give them the attention now? Like we've left them on the side for so long. We're more bothered about Nollywood. We're bothered about Afrobeats. We're not bothered about Nolly comedians or Nolly skit makers. Now, it's also amazing to hear from MC Larry J that your stand-up comedy can actually be what you see in a particular skit. That, I was so blown away by that. You say something doing stand-up comedy, and then you see it, or the audiovisual version of it. That's still an infringement as far as I'm concerned. So that's another issue that needs to be looked at. Dr. Eriko also said something about e-registration with the corporate, in Nigeria, we call it Nigerian Corporate Commission, which actually makes sense. I don't think we have a whole lot there whereby comedians will actually write down their stuff or get their stuff into a fixed format and actually send it to MCC as part of their creative works, so that if somebody else is out there using their works, they have a means to go after that person when they desire, or to record them. These are just ways out to record them, or to ensure that if they see something out there without their authorization, they were recorded without authorization, to go after such people, to bring, it's not just about going, because he mentioned the takedown notice. Also, the new Nigerian Corporate Act has a whole section on content online, and you having it, asking it to be taken down as well. Apart from that, you can also go that authorization is missing in all these things and all that. I'm just trying to pick bits and pieces. You'd have noticed that you said everything, but I'm still struggling to say something. Comedians also depend a lot, like you said, it depends a lot on ideas. And if it's just your idea that you're depending on in such a situation, there's a difficulty for corporate protection. So it's not enough. Social norms, not enough. The law, not enough. So we need to find ways out for comedians regarding the things they do and the activities, and we need to give them more attention. I'll call skit makers Nolly skits, because they're short. And that's another question. Damila's talked about audiovisual, and you have a definition for the audiovisual. Do they really fit into that definition? That's another problem. Perhaps copyright does not really protect them when you look at that definition, because they're just short clips of videos. There's nothing about sequence and stuff, just short clips of videos that they do with one camera in the same scene with the same person, like you said, Hahuma, the same person, being the father, being the husband, being the son, being her, being the mom, being everything. Does it really fit into that interpretation in section 0108 of the Corporate Act? Is there an issue there as well for skit makers? So it's like you have, and it's not all comedians that are skit makers. So comedians have their issues. comedians have their issues with skit makers, and then skit makers have their issues. One thing I'm concerned about is can skit makers knock out comedians from the show? So will Ali Baba in the future, Godons and Basketball, some of them that don't do skits, be knocked off by Lai Wasabi or MC Larry J, who does his own on Instagram and all that? Is there really a competition now? What is going on? Do we need to really sit down to have a round table to talk about these things, to talk about protection, to make comedians like MC Larry J happy? So with the little I've said, I think I'll stop there. I've been taken from everybody.
Yes,
I'll
thank
stop
you
there.
so much. Thank you, Prof, as usual. Thank you for giving us that wrap up, talk. We have a couple of questions. Just before that, I'd like to again go back and thank the speakers who have really spoken, giving us different perspectives. And you have generated a lot of questions, and more questions are coming in. And I would like to read them just as they are asked so that I don't mix up the questions. But just before I read them out, I just want to also chip in one or two of my thoughts or questions to the speakers because I'm actually interested in legal protection, IP protection. That's really, for me, very fundamental. And as an IP lawyer, I think that's a very important issue. Of course, there are so many issues, not just legal protection, but I mean, that's a very important point of interest. And I agree with Enrico very, very much about two key issues. The first issue is what is protected. And I think that's important for the creatives themselves. They need to know what is protected under IP law. And of course, the issue of infringement, they also need to know the limits and the boundaries of that protection, either to how to enforce and to know what's infringed, what is not infringed, what's exempted by law. But I just want to draw attention to, I think Damola brought the issue of Copyright Act, and I think that's very, very important, very, very important. If you look at skit makers and comedy makers, I mean, they will fall into two categories: audiovisual under Part 1, properly so called, that's copyright. And of course, you also find them under Part 8, which is the performer's rights. Performer's right, which is quite distinct, as it were, from the copyright in audiovisual that we see in Part 1. And I think this is something I like the panel to think over, because for me, the whole idea of protecting performers, or what you call live performance, is actually to protect them from their unfixed performances as live performers. This different from copyright, as it were. So I like to have some thoughts around that, because if you see even the Benji Treaty that we all know, the Benji Treaty for Protection of Audiovisual Performance, you see that it protects audiovisual fixation and unfixed performances. And I think that's something that, particularly for the comedians, for the people who do jokes different from skits, which is recorded and reproduced, as it were. So I like that distinction to be clarified, if Enrico can do that. And of course, the Benji Treaty and its precursor, the Rome Convention for Protection of Performers, Producers of Photographs, and broadcasting organization. And that's something from the international law perspective that you might want to, and of course, Nigeria, is a signatory to the Benji Treaty, and how far has it fulfilled that obligation in its new Copyright Act, particularly with respect to Part 8, which deals with performance right. Because performance right in that section, you could see, deals with fixation of its unfixed performances and reproduction of that fixation, But my understanding, and of course, like our expert in the house, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, that the whole idea of live performance protection is to protect live performances, which is not really fixed, So a comedian comes in and cracks a joke. If it's recorded, that's a different thing because of the visual. But, live performance, as it were, and to what extent can this be protected under neighboring rights, which we all claim it's covered under the Copyright Act. So that's something that I like us to think about. But let me go through the 3 questions that we have, which I think should be addressed first because of our participants and the very important questions. So I'll read them. There is a question by Kenneth here and I'll read it. He says, I don't know if you have already talked about this, but my question is, I have heard some of the notable US stand-up comedians complaining on public that their content have been stolen or reproduced by another comic on stand. And I think Enrico made that point, and Prof also made that point very, very, very strongly. My question is this: in that similar situation or circumstance, what are the reliefs? Now that brings us to the issue of reliefs, and I think this is really, really open up another kind of insight. Reliefs in our jurisdiction in Nigeria here, when one copy jokes that have already been performed on stage by another without acknowledging the original. I think Prof mentioned these reliefs, and Enrico also mentioned even the social norm aspect as well. So that is one question from Kenneth. Kenneth also asked another question, and he says, also, what about the copyrightability of a content where someone has a stand-up comedy show and someone else shares that same content on their platforms, i.e. YouTube? Very, very instructive. Then, of course, Mr. Mosa asked the question, looking back at the case of Ashake using a police officer's video in his music video without permission, can we categorically say the police officer is a performer? Interesting. Then last but not the least, no, actually, yeah, not the last now, Dr. Inkem says fixation, as highlighted by Dr. Bonadio and Professor Yemi Lawal, is a problem. However, as highlighted by MC Larry, the presentation usually changes when presented. So won't that fall under the exceptions to copyright infringement? Then also by Dr. Itai, for Adedeji Damola, how do you advise in practical ways skit makers can protect their performance right under the Copyright Act? And I think that will set us to another round. And I think we need to be very brief about this. So I will start with, I don't know whether MC Larry J is still here, but you can't stop MC Larry J,
No,
but if he's not here, so let's start with Enrico to give us some insight for about 5 minutes around these issues that has been raised. Then I'll come to Damola. Then, of course, Prof will round up for us. So we can round up in the next 15, 20 minutes if we can. So, Enrico, over to you.
Yes, I mean these issues. I think I covered some of these issues of these issues in the talk. I mean, there is a difficulty for some comedians to prove that the defendant has accessed the work, first of all, and then he has copied the protectable elements. But the access to the work by the defendant might be, as I said, challenging, especially for non-famous comedians, right? Those who do not publish them so often. Of course, if you have a website and you publish them on your website, you might do a good thing. But that's a kind of boomerang effect, because if you publish them on the website, you also risk them to be appropriated by someone else. So it is true that by publishing them, you kind of put let's say, a seal of, look, I created that and I have the copy. It would also be recommendable to insert the copyright symbol, right? Next to each joke. But not everybody does so. I mean, there are comedians, as I said, who improvise, and this brings us to the fixation requirement. It is true that nowadays, with all these recording devices we have, smartphone, iPad, iPod, it's easier to record than, let's say, 30 years ago, of course. But still, it's an issue. It's an issue for those who improvise, especially. And as far as I understand, there are many comedians who improvise the jokes, or they change slightly the joke when it comes to performing, right? In this case, again, if there is no recording, is difficult. I mean, the word performance has come up in one of the questions there, right? Because in addition to being a copyrightable subject matter as a literary work, right? The comedian could also be, in theory, considered as a performer. As a performer in telling the joke, for example, written by someone else. Because there is an art in telling jokes. One thing is writing them, okay, and you produce the same effect, and the same effect is to make people laugh. But the performance of a joke by a good comedian might enhance that effect by making people laugh more. There are different kind of comedians: talented, less talented, more talented, super talented, and this issue might give the performer of a joke an additional layer of protection, right? On the way he performs, for example, by using hands, by using a particular attitude, in the very same way actors in cinema and actors in theater do add something to the script. Of course, we have not come to the point where actors can claim a copyright in the performance, but actors often add something of their own creativity to the script, to the dialogue, right? The same could be said of comedians. And therefore, I would like to stress, of course, it's more an academic discussion because as far as I know, I haven't come across comedians who have tried to enforce performers' rights. Performers' rights have been around for a while now, right? 1961, the Rome Convention. And then, through the WIPO Copyright Treaty in the European Union. So, at least from a theoretical perspective, this could be another angle for an additional layer of protection.
Well, thank you. Damola, can you give us your wrap-up thoughts for the next 5 minutes on some of these issues and questions?
Thank you, Prof. I'm so overwhelmed. The questions you raised, very, very important. The questions raised by Kenneth, Amusa, and even Dr. Ntai, I don't know how to put everything into one statement, but I'll try. So let me start with Amusa's question, whether the woman that shouted, help me, they carry me go where I don't know in Ashake's video, whether the incorporation of that line in Ashake's musical video, whether that woman is a performer. Again, I'll go back to the act. I have it open up here, section 63, subsection 3. It says, in this part, performer includes actors, singers, musicians, dancers, and other persons who act, sing, deliver, declaim, playing, interpret, or otherwise perform literary or artistic works or expressions of folklore, irrespective of whether the work was fixed or only fixed during performance. My understanding of this section does not capture a policewoman who was just doing her job. She's doing her job under the Police Act. So this problem, and it's not a problem, this quote and unquote problem says more about our indigenous way of creating. We are just creative like that. Sometimes I believe the Eurocentric copyright is not enough to capture what an African defines as creativity. So this is why we will always have issues with copyright acts. As long as it is Eurocentric, as long as it is inherited, as long as it is imported, transplanted. No, really. Because we are a dramatic nation. Everybody is an actor in Nigeria. Everybody is a comedian in Nigeria. If you follow me on WhatsApp, what I post on my WhatsApp status is enough to entertain you. So I don't think that woman, that police officer is a performer. And to distinguish between performance and a performer, I think there is a bit of there's a bit of lack of clarity, trying to link what a performance is and who a performer is. Professor Arolo mentioned seeing she mentioned seeing a comedian as an actor. In my humble view, ma'am, an actor is a comedian. A comedian is an actor. Even though the act does not spell it out, people who make us laugh by playing a character that is not theirs in real life, they are acting. So whether their performance is fixed or not, whether it is captured in an audiovisual work, I see them. Again, this is my argument. This is not necessarily what is there in doctrinal law. This is my argument. I think they should be captured as performers. Skit makers, whether the act include, because they are most of them are performing literary work. I read an interview of Taoma before in the course of preparing for this event. Taoma said it takes her sometimes 5 hours to prepare for a skit. And depending on how intense that skit is going to be, it can take her 2 to 3 days. She does scripts. So the first stage of a skit is a literary work. So you perform, what you're performing is eventually a literary work, which is captured under section 63 sub 3, even though eventually the output is an audiovisual. In this part, the performer includes actors, singers, musicians, dancers, blah, 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 who perform literary or artistic work. So, I mean, I see skit makers as performers, and they should be aware of their rights under that part of the copyright part. Thank you.
Yes, so much with conviction. I totally feel you, Damola. Thank you so much for that perspective. Can we have a wrap up? And I think the last part of your discussion, I mean, I saw Professor Yemi nodding because you are really going into her field. She's been probably the greatest advocate of traditional knowledge. You know that very well.
That is my passion.
You've struck a chord in her. She's going to take it up from there about, indigenous creativity and the protection that we have under IP law. So, Prof, can you just round up for us before
I'll just
yes.
round up quickly.
Yes.
And it's good to have different perspectives. Really. Still going back, which is not like Damola said, it's a personal opinion. And there's really no clarity enough for comedians regarding the matter. What I'm trying to say is, you have stand-up comedians. Ali Baba is not a skit maker. And when he stands up, that's a performance. Yeah? Now, skit makers like Taoma, they're not Ali Baba. They're in the audiovisual section. So you can't bring Ali Baba to the audiovisual unless he asks you to record that performance. And if he doesn't ask you to record that performance, that's an infringement of his rights, which he's able to take up as a strictly stand-up comedian, MC, event person. So it's like boxes, do you understand? And that's when MC Lige was talking, the comedians have their issues. Jokes having thin copyright protection and things like that, social norms, non-social norms, and stuff like that. They have their own issues. Then you now have comedians that are skit makers. They have their own issues. You now have even comedians having problems with skit makers who steal their performance to make skits. There's another issue there. Now let's go back to that. Let's go back to the what we were talking about. Let's go back to that section. It says in section 63(1), it is stated that the performer has the exclusive right to control in relation to his performance the acts. Both of them are in that thing. So I feel the comedians are, why not specifically state comedians? It gives them more protection. Now, the reason why I thought of this topic, when we went for the roundtable in Abuja, I was telling Prof. Adewopa about it. Went for the roundtable by Ministry of Arts, Culture, and Creative Economy. And they asked RMD to stand up to talk. That's Richard Mufetamijo. He's an actor. He can be comical, but he's an actor. And then it came to my mind, they didn't ask Ali Baba to talk. They should have asked him to talk because it's from the comedy industry. And those ones are from the film industry as actors. And yes, they perform in the film industry. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Because we need to start giving credit to comedians and skit makers, but they fall sometimes into two different categories. When a stand-up comedian is not a skit maker, do you understand? Yes, Taoma is performing in her audiovisual. There's a protection mechanism for audiovisual. You agree with me on that? There's protection mechanism for performance. You agree with me on that? So for instance, you're not Taoma, and then you go somewhere and you try to look like her. It'll be difficult to look like her. It will be difficult for you to act like her, unless you steal that skit, that audiovisual, which she has not given me permission to use, you take it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So I do agree with you that, yes, fine, we're both in academia. You can claim that a comedian is an actor. You defend it. But there's also another window, apart from, it stated that, let me just say, I have it here as well, because I actually copied, I said, where performances include dramatic performance, which includes dance and mime, musical performance, reading and recitation of literary act, or any similar presentation, they fall into that any. Why not state specifically that they fall into that category? Or why don't you, is it too much to say comedian? Why must we believe comedians are actors? They can be comedians, they can be skit makers, they can be actors. Bimbo Ademoye, she's an actor, she's a skit maker, she's a comedian, she's everything put together. So you not deprive her of all those other things just because she wants to claim actor. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So it's not as if I do not agree, can defend that, different opinions and being able to critique stuff and all that. And I definitely agree with you without anything that we're not intentional enough looking at our laws and looking within. All these skit makers are original. They are original. Some are so amazing, it's unbelievable. They don't depend on other people's works. They depend on their creativity, originality, and fixation. See, I don't need to watch Netflix anymore. I'm sorry, Netflix. I still love you, but I watch it sometimes. I still have Prime Video because I can sit in YouTube. Mr. Macaroni alone has more than 800 skits. One person. And you keep going. And he does it with everybody in the entertainment industry. He moves from Davido to anybody. And then one thing MC like Jay said again, which I need to say now, which again might fall short for these people who make skits. I do know Dr. something. He's a doctor. Lai Wasabi, he's a lawyer. They are not actors. They are lawyers. They are doctors. They are engineers. Simi Agbaje, lawyer. And they are skit makers. Do you understand? So we need to look within the Nigerian environment regarding our laws, regarding how we do things. Because like you said, even Damola is a performer. Even when it's the first time I met him at a conference, and he's saying it, I want to become a performer. I want to become a skit maker. I can teach many students by doing some skits online. Don't you think so, Dr. Enrico? There's a lot in there for us to deal with. Thank you, sir.
Yes, so we can draw the curtain now. Another session over, and I think who talks about skit makers except Elane? I mean,
nobody.
Kudos to you, Professor Yemi. But this is a very interesting session we've had today, and I really want to thank our participants first, because without them we would just be speaking to the air. So I thank them, and I thank the panelists for bringing fresh perspective to this very interesting topic. Thank you very much. I thank Enrico all the way from London. I thank Adedomola Adeniji all the way from Ottawa, Canada. And I thank all the other panelists, Prof. and Larry MC Larry J for coming to share their thoughts with us. So I think I have the permission of our big boss, Mr. Lauye, to declare this webinar closed. Okay, all right then. Sorry, sir.
Go on, Prof. It's up to you now.
Thank you.
Never talk about Sheye Lawal in-house, always behind the scenes.
Yes,
You
yeah,
sending
I
me
can see
WhatsApp
Sheye Lawal.
messages and saying, well done. Sheye is the fourth partner of Elani.
One of these days, we're going to
Or
bring
second
like
or
Sheye
third.
up. We're going to bring Mr. Lawal up here one of these days, you know.
Has to, he has to.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, participants. Let's call it a day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And I'm sorry for coming late
Thank
again.
you so much, Dr. Enrico.
Yeah.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Damola.
You're
Thank
welcome,
you.
Damola.
That's it, oh, Damola. That's it. It's good. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Prof. Bye.